Intuition, Jung, who was kind of like the master of the unconscious, even he found it a little bit difficult to describe. But he's basically saying that, if someone who has sensation as the way that they orienteer around the world, so they're very practical and external focused, and they like to, measure things and work with physical, an engineer or something like that. An intuitive would do kind of the opposite, and they would orientate with the unconscious, going through life, recognizing symbols from their dreams, or kind of going from gut feelings from the unconscious. People who are intuitive had hunches, they had feelings that things were gonna go bad. There was a famous dream by Joseph who said that Egypt was gonna have 7 years of floods and then 7 years of famine. And the Pharaoh was like an intuitive guy and was like, I reckon this is really gonna happen, and it did happen. By doing so, he saved Egypt basically. So that's kind of a wild situation. Can you imagine the president now not going by data, but by going by a dream? We probably wouldn't, but I think even at a micro level, whether or not we go down one way to work or the other way to work, or we have a feeling that this meeting is going to go really well, or be able to read the room in that sense, can be really useful. A couple of other ways that intuition can kind of feed into your lives. Again, I've never really practiced this, so I'm kind of getting to know it myself, but I think everyone could kind of benefit from this. So intuition can be kind of like a safety register, whether or not we get a feeling about a kind of person, or whether or not a car, when we're riding a bike and a car's going to pull out in front of us. One of the kind of sad things for me was the fact that because I've kind of pushed away this dominant function, I think it's meant that I've gone through life hesitating a lot. And I think even if you think about the sensation of hesitation, often it's a kind of stilting, stopping, awkward feeling when we're kind of doing something and then we've suddenly kind of had to really think through it, and it becomes a little bit painful. And I think what's really happening there is that we've been guided through by our unconscious, by muscle memory, by things we kind of know how to move through life, and then we've kind of brought kind of ego back into it, and the ego has kind of said, all right, let's figure this out, let's do linear thinking, let's check what's happening. And it's very slow, and it's not actually the best way to make decisions. And I think if we try and make big life decisions, like should I kind of take this job, or should I move to another country, using the ego to make that sort of decision can really feel painful, and we can labor over it at many times. And I think that can cause a lot of hesitation in life. What we're better off doing is to kind of collect information, use the ego to kind of gather resources and maybe point us and say, hey, let's figure out, what to do in the situation. Let's give ourselves a month to make a decision here. But ultimately we should rely on intuition to say, give the thumbs up or things thumbs up. And that could be a dream, that could be a general gut feeling, that could be a sense that something doesn't feel quite right. But often that's going to be a lot more powerful and successful than ticking a couple of boxes. Finally, I would say personality tests, probably give them a miss unless you're really kind of digging into and really figuring out what your strength is. For me, I just wasn't that interested, and it meant that I misidentified, misunderstood who I actually am, just because I think that's what everyone does. Give it a miss, figure out your strengths if you can. If you can't, maybe just get an understanding. I think it's useful to have an understanding of these 4 functions, and build them up, learn from them. That's it.